What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 17 of the Flex RX. Man, we are racking up these episodes. And so today is going to be a pretty fun one. So, sometimes I'm like, I don't know what to talk about today. Like, what's going to be the topic? And so I post on my stories on Instagram. And so I appreciate you guys when you submit some questions. And sometimes you can deep dive on some of those. So I got a question on there. I got a question on my Instagram, and so I want to, deep dive on this one. And so the question that I got, so today's topic is going to be about this question that I got on Instagram in my submit a question things. And so what that's going to be, and this question was from Jovi_T. So shout out to you. The question was, if you woke up fat, what's the first thing you do to start getting lean again? So I'm going to take you guys through exactly what I would do if I woke up in a spot. Let's say, ideally this won't happen, but knock on woods. But let's say that I get a bad injury and I'm out of the gym for like 12 months and I lose a ton of muscle because I'm just not training. I gain some body fat, a lot of it. And let's say I need to start back from kind of the square one. So I'm going to take you guys through exactly step-by-step what I would do. So if you're in a position where you want to lose body fat, you can probably just, run this through. Also, thank you, Honorary Boomer. Congrats on the new baby. Thank you. Due later this year. So exciting stuff, fatherhood, and can't wait for figuring out the sleep game then. But the question that I got, so we'll write it down. If you woke up, Matt, what's the first thing you'd do to start getting lean again? So what would I do? So step one, here's the first thing that I would do. And we're going to say example for me. If you guys know right now, I'm 215 pounds. I'm 6'2". So I'm pretty darn lean right now. And so let's say that I wake up, no training for 12 months, bad injury. And then let's say I'm 250 pounds with less muscle. And let's say we're going to say I get up to like 30% body fat or something like that. But these are just like arbitrary numbers, just numbers. So the first thing that I would do, this is where I would start. And this is where we start with when I'm doing a fat loss phase. This is where I start. Our clients in HFP, this is where we start. HFP. So number one is to just start weighing in daily. This is going to be a daily thing. The reason why we want to do this is because we got to know where we're at. So in my case here, it's like if I just, gained a lot of weight, and if I don't know if I'm 245, if I'm 250 pounds, and then I don't know if, let's say I weigh in a month later and I'm at like 244 pounds. Am I did I lose 6 pounds? Did I lose 1 pound? Do I have to change up what I'm doing? Am I making good progress? We've even seen people where we do daily weigh-ins, and sometimes people will know the amount of progress they've made, but they don't know relative to if that's successful or not. You're 8 weeks into something and you're down 15 pounds. We've had people, especially in HFP, and we're like, hey, you crushed it. You're 15 pounds down in like 8 weeks. And they're like, yeah, I don't really notice too many changes. We're like, this is incredible progress. Like, you should be really proud of yourself. And sometimes we just don't know what success looks like. Like a lot of people, especially with social media, if you deadlift, let's say 315 pounds coming from 225, that's awesome. But when you look at these 16-year-olds, 18-year-olds that are like deadlifting 700 pounds, you're like, is that just what good looks like? But there's a lot of this gap from 225 to get to 700 to be proud of the steps along the way. You don't know if that 16 or 18-year-old had been lifting since they're like 10 years old or 12 years old. You may be in year one. So sometimes it's just like to know what is success and am I making success? Am I making progress? So that's why first off, if my number one goal is to lose this body fat, I need to look at the scoreboard. This is the scoreboard for fat loss. Oh, but Kevin, what if I gain 10 pounds and I lose body fat? Is that possible? Yeah, totally. But that could take you years to do because we can lose fat at such a faster rate. Lose fat at such a faster rate than muscle can muscle can be gained. And so that's very important because I know weighing in is not perfect, but it's a good correlator for fat loss. And in this case, too, if I'm like 30%, 40% body fat, I'm not, and let's talk in my relative terms, I'm not going to be 250 pounds at 10% body fat. I am not going to lose 20% body fat while staying the same weight. Let's do math. Let's do some math. Math is fun. So if I'm 250 pounds, let's say 30% body fat, that is 75 pounds of, no. Yeah, 30%. Yeah, that's 75. Yeah, so 75 pounds of body fat. And so if I'm going to go to 10%, so that's 25 pounds of body fat. So that means that's going to be 50 pounds of body fat I'm going to be losing. If I'm going to stay the same 250 pounds and drop 50 pounds of body fat, this means that I have to gain 50 pounds of muscle. How likely is that to happen for somebody, one, not on anabolics, two, even somebody on anabolics? Like that's gonna be hard to do, and that's gonna take a lot of time. And so all that being considered is it's gonna be your best correlator. Just focus on the number on the scale and the extra additional fat loss you get from like the strength training that you're doing, eating your protein, the body composition, but benefits you get. That's going to be more of that bonus, and that's how I think about that. So I want to see that net loss on the scale. And so in this case, so I'm going to start weighing in. This is going to be the scoreboard for fat loss, and this is going to be really useful to be looked at. And what gets tracked gets improved. So I think of it as the scoreboard. But again, like we've had people in HFP, I can even name one case where lost 0 pounds by the end of the first 16 weeks, but was down 4 inches off the waist. So vascularity, never seen before, more muscle definition than I'd seen before, but that's like one in about like 1,000. Like generally, if you're going to lose 4 inches off the waist, you're going to be down a net of like 15 to 20 pounds on the scale. Number 2, this is the second thing I would start doing. Track my food intake. This is also going to be daily. Just track your food intake because we know the scoreboard we're looking at, but now what is the basketball, the tracking your food intake or the calories? This is kind of like the basketball. It's like the basketball for the hoop. We're going with the basketball thing stuff today. So this is the scoreboard. We already got that. So scoreboard, calories. This is the basketball in which you put points on the scoreboard. Actually the metaphor is going to get really confusing eventually. But I would track my food intake because we need a calorie deficit to lose body fat. And so at a certain point, and let's think about this. So like there's a lot in calorie balance. So the endpoint we need is calorie deficit. And a lot of people are absolutely right that if a calorie deficit is what's required, yes, there's a lot of things that go into, what is the end point. There's this big machine of calories in, and then this big machine takes place, and then we have our calorie, balance equation. So there's a lot of things going on. So there's your daily activity level. There's your metabolism. There's your genetics play into it. I mean, your height, sex, weight, all those kinds of things play into how many calories do I actually, burn. And so that be what it is, it can be confusing and there's a lot going into it, but we know the outcome we need is a calorie deficit. And so when it comes to focusing on tracking your food intake, the reason I like this is because out of this big machine that we have, calories in is the most controllable factor we have because we can assume all this other stuff going into this machine, we can keep relatively constant, or it's going to be relatively constant. Our food intake, the calories in part of the equation, that's pretty malleable, and we can change that. We have control over that. And I'm a big fan of controlling the controllables because that's kind of all we can do. So with that being said, what I would do is I'd be focusing on, what is my calorie intake? Because again, I'll write this in. So our steps, our body size, our sex, our body size, height, that goes into all of it, genetics, etc., all goes into our expenditure. But when steps and workouts are consistent week to week, your calories out is relatively consistent. It's going to be pretty similar. There's not going to be these big swings. Like if you're getting the same step count and you're working out the same 4 times per week, you're not going to have swings of like 2,000 calorie extra expenditure, like out of nothing. But when you control your food intake, you can eat 300 calories less on a daily basis and make that 2,000 calorie, 2,100 calorie difference. So the most controllable thing we have to ensure we sustain a cal deficit is to control our intake. And so what I'm going to do from here, number 3, I'm just going to tell you some like habits that I would ideally be, this is what I'm going to be like rolling with that I would recommend. And so what I recommend on these like habits, so I'm going to put this one in parentheses because it's not really like I would do this next. This is just things that I would always recommend to be doing at this time and what I would do if I was in this situation. I want to lose body fat, probably gain my muscle back. So I'm going to be getting sufficient protein intake. So that's going to be about 1 gram per pound goal body weight. So in this case, I would say like, 200 plus is going to be solid for me around there. Another thing that I would be doing is I would find a step count target that's reasonable for me and my lifestyle. That could be like 8K steps. Is 10K steps per day better than 8K? Yeah, you burn an extra 100 calories per day. About 2,000 steps is about 100 calories burned. But is it realistic for you? Do I want to spend that much time outside walking than doing maybe other things? Or you can always ask yourself this. Could I eat 100 calories less, or do I want to walk 20 minutes more? Because 20 minutes is about how long it takes to walk about a mile, being about 2,000 steps, being about 100 calories burned, and eating 100 calories less is the same thermodynamic effect. So I'd probably get a reasonable step count that gets me reasonably active so I'm not super sedentary. That's going to be helpful. Another habit that I would be doing is working out. So work out, and I'd recommend being in that vicinity of 4 to 5 times per week. For me, I prefer to be in that 5 to 6, but like I have competitive goals in terms of like, lifting weights, and I like the game of competitive sports. That's just me. I like the game of competitive sports, and I'll be honest, like, do I love running when I'm doing it? No, it kind of sucks. I'm sweaty and like it's hard to breathe. Same thing with like lifting weights. It's hard. I'm sweating and like, not always my joints feel good, but like afterwards I'm like, yeah, cool. I moved the bar forward. I did the hard work. I feel fulfilled. Now we're going to move into number 4, and this is the big moneymaker. So the big moneymaker is going to be look at the trend of my weight and look at my calorie average. Adjust calorie target based on that. It's an algorithm. So what I would do here is I'm keeping my protein consistent. My calories, I would probably early on, I would just, the high always makes the run worth it. Yeah, the runner's high. I think I've only had I honestly, after running, I feel pretty fatigued. I did run today. But I think now I'm able to handle 3 to 5 milers and actually not be as fatigued later in the day. But yeah, like on a long run day, I'm pretty beat. Although we hosted 2 barbecues and I got like 15 miles ran this last weekend. So that was a new PR. But it can be fatiguing. But back on topic, look at the trend of my weight and look at my calorie average. So adjust that. So target 1 to 2 pounds loss per week. If I'm losing less than 1 pound per week, I'm dropping calories. So losing too slow, drop calories. So I'll drop by 100 to 300 calories. It depends on like how slow things get. But this initially it's going to be bigger chunks. As like if I already lost 10 pounds and now I'm like, I'm losing 1 pound per week right now. I just want to speed things up. I'll drop like 50 calories or something, maybe 100. But early on, you're going to have to take some big bricks out. Like if I'm like, I just start tracking my intake, I'm tracking my weigh-in, my weight staying about the same. So weight staying about the same. My calories, let's say, are like 2,500 calories. Weight staying the same. So I'd be like, all right, like I gotta rip the Band-Aid a little bit. Let me take 300-400 calories away, and let's see what the rate of loss looks like. And so that's the game that we're looking at. And so if things slow down, drop the calories. You have other options, but I'd say early on, just take the big chunks at your calories, because that's going to be for sure big impact. Number 5 is just pretty much repeat, repeat, repeat. So when rate of loss slows, adjust calorie balance. And so I'll walk through all of the options that you do have, because it's not just calories in terms of intake. I think that's the most powerful one, but eventually at a certain time, you're going to be like, okay, my calories are so low, like maybe I can just be a little bit more active, and you'll trade time instead of trading food. So it's kind of, there's a cost to anything. And so you could just, go walk more. If walking is too slow for burning calories, you could go jog. If that's, too slow, or like that's too difficult, or you just don't like the impact, then you can do it in elliptical. So there's a lot of options. It's great to be alive in 2024. So when rate of loss slows, adjust calorie balance. So first thing, you can drop calories, aka food. You can drop that by like, 50. You can even do as low as like 25 calories to like 200. You can just drop that. You could also, another option is add activity, aka expenditure. And so this could be, cardio in the form of, of running, elliptical. And these you can probably just have like a calorie target. Elliptical, Peloton, if you bougie like that. So drop calories, add activity. And then also, this is still add activity, but I feel like this is kind of like, it's almost like a behind the scenes activity. Like, it's not as brutal. You can really work it in. You don't need any equipment. I would just do it inside, but that would be adding steps. And so every 2K steps you add is, there's 100 calories burned. It's about a mile traveled. So these are kind of like the 3 things that I would look to change when my rate of loss slows. So again, if I were 250 pounds, I gained a lot of body fat, maybe I lost a lot of muscle, what I would first start by doing is I would start weighing in. So I just start weighing in, seeing where I'm at, seeing where my weight's fluctuating at. Start tracking my food intake. How many calories am I eating? How can I improve this? How can I change this? And then the 4th thing I do is I just look at how those two are associated. I'm eating 3,000 calories a day, and my weight's slowly gaining at 1 pound per week. Okay, cool. So I need to drop like 800 calories. Maybe I'm going to drop between 500 and 1,000 calories to like try to get in a robust deficit. And I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid. That may be something that has to be done. And so then I'm going to make an adjustment, make a call, run that game, and then I'm going to reevaluate. And this is the repeat. I look at the trend of my weight loss now after I drop from 3,000 calories to like, let's say 2,200 calories. Okay, now I'm losing 1 pound per week. That worked for like 3 weeks. Now I'm losing 0.5 pounds per week. Okay, cool. Let's drop another 200 calories. Let's speed that back up. Okay, now I'm losing 1.5 to 2 pounds per week. After 4 weeks, that slows down to, 1 to like 0.75. All right, let's drop like 50 calories. Let's drop 100 calories, get things moving again. And that's kind of the cycle of what fat loss looks like. Because what loses the first 10 pounds probably will not lose the second 10 pounds. Because as you are in a fat loss phase, you're literally becoming a less energy expensive mass. Going from 250 pounds to 225 pounds, you're moving from like a maybe a class, I don't even know what H1s, H2s, but you're like a Hummer. Now like you're going to move into like, now you're like a pickup truck. So like you reduce, but your fuel economy probably improved. Going from big Hummer to like a pickup truck. Fuel economy is better. So like, you're a little bit more energy efficient. So to now to get in that deficit, we just need to supply less energy. And then eventually you work your way. And now it's like, oh man, I'm a energy efficient. I'm a Toyota Corolla. So you just won't need as many calories as you work down that mass. And so that's changing. And then your body's always adapting as well. Do I think metabolic adaptation is like going to, crush you until, you can't lose weight if you're eating 800 calories per day? No, it typically doesn't work like that. And the people that cannot lose weight on a true 800 calories per day, they're typically like, 4'10" to 5'2", females that may be sedentary. My wife, 5'1", when she's like 105 pounds, when she's dieting in a deficit, trying to lose a pound per week, it gets ugly. It can be 700 to like 900 calories per day. And that's just what is. Like, we're not all super energy expensive. As much as we love to say we all run on 2,000 calories per day, we don't. And that's why it's important to know your individual numbers. And that's why I didn't say anything about a BMR calculator or a generalization. I just said, if you're losing 1 to 2 pounds per week, here's the adjustments to do. When that slows, here's the adjustments, and kind of the numbers will fall where they do. And listen to your satiety signaling. You want a sprinkle of hunger. That's a good reinforcement or good sign that you're in a calorie deficit. So hope that is helpful for you guys, but that's kind of my step-by-step what I would do if I, gained a lot of body fat and I wanted to, lose that body fat, maybe build some muscle along the way and get back on track. And it's pretty much what I do in all my fat loss phases and what we do with our clients in the Healthy Flex prescription, which you can apply for. It's the link in bio. But I'll see you guys in the next one. Let's get into some Q&A. All right. So I think that we got a bunch of stuff in the Instagram feed, so we'll get into some of that. Nathan, appreciate you being on YouTube. Enjoy following you. Thank you for the inspiration. No problem, man. Appreciate you following. And it's super easy to answer questions if you guys are on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn. It's easy to put the questions on here. I'm going to scroll through Instagram and see what we got. I was like 130 pounds soaking wet in August. I'm weighing in about 170 now, and I feel like I've hit dead end. The weight is either coming slow AF or just isn't. What can I adjust? Eric, I think there's a good question in there, but punctuation, my man, like punctuation is going to go a long way. I was like 130 pounds soaking wet in August. I'm weighing in about 170 now, so I guess 11 months later, and I feel like I've hit a dead end. The weight is either coming slow or just isn't. I wouldn't recommend most people gain 40 pounds in a year. If you're still staying pretty lean, like, geesh, you got some pretty darn good genetics, or you were probably pretty darn lean earlier. And that's awesome. But so what I started this video saying, like, we need to put ourselves in a realm of like, what does success look like? Like, what is success? So in this case, so Eric, this is my opinion. Take it for a grain of salt. I think that gaining at a rate of 40 pounds in the course of 11 months, that's about 4 pounds per month. That's 1 pound per week, roughly, a little bit less than that. But that's a pretty aggressive rate of loss. Now that you're 170 pounds, like, let's say you did retain your leanness. Now going from 170 to 180, I don't think you're going to retain as much leanness. You're so far from that initial starting position. It's like me going from 215, I'm lean, to 230 pounds, probably some conducive mass I can gain there. But then once I go from 230 to like 270, like, how much muscle am I going to be adding? Like, because at 270, I'm going to have a lot of body fat. So it's kind of, you're going to want to find your oscillation point. So be that you're, 170 pounds now, you just gained 40 pounds in about a year. Like, do you want to get to 200 pounds? And do you think that's going to be as lean as you'd like? Or I would recommend slowing down to a rate of 1 to 2 pounds per month. Like, I recommend a gain rate of 1 to 3 pounds on a monthly basis and stack up as long of a time, have that runway built and get as much time in that surplus, just gaining a little bit of fat, but getting enough of a surplus to recover better and just riding that out as long as you can. So that's kind of my thoughts. Because you say the weight is either coming slow as AF or just isn't. What can I adjust? Like, dude, you gained 40 pounds in a year's time. You're gaining 4 pounds per month. That's very quick. That is not slow. And even if you're gaining at a quarter of that rate, which would be, a quarter of that rate would be 1 pound per month. Like, you're still probably moving at a good speed. It's kind of like that question of like, what is the top end of a bulk? Like, what's worth going to? So like, for me, it's like, I don't think I'm going to be conducively training at 275. I think I'm going to be 40% body fat, and I may not feel as good, and that may just not be conducive weight for me at that time. Again, if you're taking the extra vitamins, some anabolics, maybe you are a lean 275. But that's kind of like my opinion on that. I would slow down the rate, and I think that you're not gaining necessarily slow. Hey, greetings from Ireland. What's up, Liam? What are your thoughts on vegan bodybuilding and bodybuilding with a low sugar diet? Thank you. So 2 things. Vegan and low sugar doesn't really go together too well, because vegans they don't eat any animal products. So you're probably going to have a lot of fruits and vegetables. And if you're going low sugar, then that pretty much cuts out the majority of fruits, because there's a lot of sugar in fruits. And it's not bad sugar, but it is sugar. Sugar is sugar. It's a chemical kind of like thing. Glucose, sucrose, all those oses, they look the same under a microscope. So that being said, so just like initial thoughts, that just doesn't really go together. But my thoughts on vegan bodybuilding, I mean, what are your thoughts is always like a very broad question, but I'll give you like what that looks like. Vegan bodybuilding is going to be harder than bodybuilding with meats and dairy products, because you get complete proteins with, meats and dairy products. You're going to get your leucine, the broad essential amino acids. With a lot of vegan sources, be like if you're doing rice protein, pea proteins, etc., a lot of times you're not going to get a full complete protein, which means you get all of the essential amino acids, so amino acids are what makes protein. The essential amino acids are the amino acids your body cannot make on its own. And so when you ingest protein, you want to have every amino acid covered when you have a protein feeding. Because let's say you have, I forgot how many there are, but let's say you're missing one essential amino acid. You can't really build muscle because you're missing one of the building blocks. So you're trying to build a house, but you don't have nails. Or you're trying to build a house and you're just missing, just the brick or just the cement. So it kind of is going to stop things. So with vegan bodybuilding, you got to be a little bit more creative and a little bit more thoughtful with like your food pairings to ensure that you get the broad essential amino acid profile in a protein feeding. 2, leucine, the moneymaker amino acid. That's going to be the food with your blood leucine level. So it's one of the essential amino acids. When you have sufficient leucine in the bloodstream, that stimulates muscle protein synthesis. I don't think there's too many vegan sources that are super high in it. So that's going to be something maybe you need higher total protein loads, higher total protein feedings to make sure you get sufficient leucine in those meals. Third thing is it's called PD-COS. It's pretty much the availability of protein in a certain food. A lot of vegan sources are going to be lower than your meats, your eggs, your dairies. Just kind of like a one-to-one. So again, you may need actually to eat more protein, total grams of protein from vegan sources to account for that bioavailability discrepancy. So there's a couple extra hoops to jump through, but if you're willing or if you're able to think those things through and just like kind of run with it, you'll be fine. You can make just as much gains. You can make some amazing gains. There's some really jacked vegan people, probably plenty of jacked vegans that are, way more jacked than I am. But you got to be a little bit strategic there. And there's extra thought processes. So again, those 3 pieces are the bioavailability, the leucine content, and the broad essential amino acids. If you can cover those 3 things and kind of be strategic, I think tofu is actually I think it's a complete protein. I think it's got relatively high leucine. I think it's pretty bioavailable, like soy protein. And I think it's been pretty much debunked that like a lot of soy protein or tofu is going to like raise your estrogen and give you breasts. So I think you're going to be in a good spot there. But yeah, so that's my general big, broad thoughts on vegan bodybuilding. Can totally be done. A couple extra things. And bodybuilding with a low sugar diet. So my question there is just like, yeah, low sugar diet can mean so many things, because low sugar diet could be a carnivore diet. And then it's like, okay, so are you avoiding just carbs in general and just going to, you're on carnivore, you're going like keto, where like, okay, you can fuel your body better for strength training by having carbs, because carbs, glucose is the best fuel for strength training, just the energy source we're going to use. So it doesn't make too much sense to go, super low carb and say that that's optimal or the best. But you'll get your protein in most likely. Other thing that low sugar diet could mean is like, okay, I'm getting in carbs, but now I'm just like avoiding anything that I actually enjoy eating because sugar is bad. Sugar isn't necessarily bad. And diabetics, if you're diabetic, be that type 1, be that type 2, you don't track your sugar. You track your total carbs, your total carb intake, because all carbs are digested into sugar. So it's actually your total carbs you're actually looking at, your total carbohydrate. I believe maybe it's minus fiber, but people that actually have to look at and regulate their blood sugar, they aren't just looking at sugar, like sugar bad. It's all carbs you're going to digest into carbs. If you're a healthy person, you're not type 2 diabetic, so you don't have insulin sensitivity issues, you're fine eating carbs, because insulin, which our body produces, is going to pull it out of the bloodstream and it's going to do what it's got to do. And then you're probably just going to get better pumps in the gym, and it's going to fuel your training. And there's benefits there. So I would say my thoughts with a low sugar diet in bodybuilding: for a couple of reasons. I think one, you shouldn't avoid carbs for best performance. I very strongly, it's been pretty much proven. In like if you're running, if you're jumping, if you're doing strength training, you're gonna want carbs as the preferred fuel source. You're gonna want that in your body. You don't see marathon runners at the highest level eating peanut butter as they're running. They have gel packets that are just carb gels. Okay, but second thing is if you're avoiding sugar because quote unquote it's bad for health, it's not, because then like you're not going to swear off fruits too, because then fruits in general wouldn't have such high correlation with good health outcomes. And then 3 is, so we said for performance, sugar is not bad. And then pretty much 3 is sugar is often delicious. And so I'm a big believer in like eat something you can do for the long term. So I wouldn't really like avoid all sugar. But I mean, if you just like prefer eating steaks, go for it. After turning 60, I lost muscle mass. Can I get it back? If so, how? So we got people on HFP that have been making gains in like their 70s. Shout out to Bill. Making gains there. And we got actually multiple clients in HFP that are in their 60s in the best shape of their lives, the strongest that they've ever been, which is pretty freaking cool. So turned 60, want to get jacked. Again, it sounds. So this is what I would do. Eat sufficient protein, especially if you're recapturing muscle that you already had. It's going to be a lot easier to get there rather than getting to a new level of muscle mass. But as you get older, your protein sensitivity actually does reduce. So you actually do need more as you age. So in this case, I would probably go closer to 1 gram per pound of body weight, rather than I say like 1 gram per pound of goal body weight. So like, let's say you're like 200 pounds and let's say you're 20% body fat. I would still probably go for like 180 to 200 grams. Where in like other cases, I'd be fine with people going like, 1 gram per pound lean body mass, which would be 160 in this case, to like 180, which could probably be like goal. So I would probably recommend to be a little bit on the higher end, especially if you're a little bit older. 2 is get in the gym. If you can get back to your strength, if you can get back to as strong as you were when you were your most muscular, it's likely you're going to have just as much muscle. Not like 1 rep max, but like if you're doing like your 5s, your 8s, your 10s, the same technique and range of motion, you're going to be about able to be as muscular as you were, because muscle and cross-sectional area of your muscle is what's actually going to be pushing the weight. So get in the gym, get strong. And so I would recommend, my preference is full range motion training. This is going to also allow you to have less load on your joints, because with a full range of motion, you're getting a fuller, longer rep, taking your muscle through a full range, which means you're not doing quarter reps, which like, let's say that's 50% the distance that you would actually have to move the weight, which means to do the same work, you're going to be lifting heavier weights in these quarter reps. And to get the same amount of stimulus, the full range of motion, you can use less weight, which is going to be easier on your joints and ligaments. And also there's a lot of emerging research coming out now that the muscle in a stretched position is where it's going to get the best growth. So even partials, when it's very stretched, is going to be useful. I still recommend full range of motion and just do full range reps, because you get that stretch and you get the full kind of movement, and it's easy and objective to count. Like, I think there is stuff like a lot of people are liking like partials where it is kind of at those stretch positions, is just kind of getting those partial movements. But I just feel it's going to be harder to track over the long term. So that's why I'm a big fan, full range of motion reps. So get strong, full range of motion reps, variety of movements, and yeah, just get strong. And I'd say like train 4 to 5 times a week and make sure your joints are feeling good. Probably if you have some iffy joints, then you're going to want to preference the 10 to 20 rep range rather than the, let's say like 5 to 10 rep range. Because the 5 to 10, that's going to be more, you're going to be lifting higher loads, which are going to be a little bit more taxing on the joints and ligaments. So if you have any issues there, the 10 to 20 range may just be a little bit easier on the joints and ligaments. After turning 60, I lost muscle mass. How can I get it back? Eat sufficient protein, get in the gym consistently, get stronger in the gym. Be consistent. That's always going to be a piece there. And I think when we try to overcomplicate it from there, like these are really the big pillars to get things moving. And if I had to say like one more, just when anyone wants to gain muscle, it's like get your sleep right, be sleep, get sleep. And sleep is the best thing, one of the best things you can do for recovery, keeping your joints in a good spot and gaining more muscle while you reduce or keep body fat at a moderate level. Great questions though. Was an All-American gymnast for 8 years, then an All-American diver for 6, but was always kind of small. Okay, yeah, dude, you're a badass. Good for you. That's sick. 14 years being an All-American across 2 things. But yeah, so I would even think, so sometimes I see it where I've seen people where, and this happens with some people coming out of a bodybuilding prep. So in a bodybuilding prep, you're in underfed conditions. You're dieting, getting super lean. And then like as an All-American gymnast, you got to stay pretty light and lean. But your body weight strength is very good. I think you're even getting a good amount of training stimulus and volume from like a perspective of what's that called? Calisthenics. But calisthenics is like your body weight, you can still get some good reps in. And you may have, been putting in the work and you have maybe the genetic coding for more muscle, but you just didn't have the substrate to build with. So kind of in the example of like a bodybuilding prep, some people, when they get out of their prep and they're able to eat in a surplus, they see a lot of muscle gains. It isn't just because they finished their prep, they finally started, eating more food, and just because of that, gained more muscle. They actually may be cashing in on, let's say they did a 9-month cut into that show. They had 9 months of training where they just did not have enough food to really, express those adaptations. Then they get overfed into that bulk, and they're kind of cashing in from that genetic coding from like a year prior. That's what I'm thinking potentially, Eric. If you stayed pretty lean while adding 40 pounds, I think you have that genetic code or that training volume over the years that just may not have had the substrate, the food, the surplus to actually kind of be expressed, if that makes sense. So I would still have like I definitely would still be surprised too, like 40 pounds in a year, but seeing like your history, it's almost like a muscle memory thing. So muscle memory is very effective and legit, where like people, in the example that I gave, if like, let's say I'm in a coma for 12 months, I stopped training, I probably would lose like 20 to 30 pounds of muscle. And like, that is what it is. But I can recapture that 20 to 30 pounds of muscle probably in the next, 3 to 6 months if I give enough food. And does that mean that I just gained 20 to 30 pounds of muscle because my training is so good then? No, it's actually because muscle memory, I'm just recapturing what I already had. I had the genetic coding. I had the writing in my body that says like, yeah, there's some 18-inch biceps right there. Like they're 15s right now, but we got the recipe written already. So I think that's cool. But Eric, shout out to you, man. Like way to all America it. Any thoughts, tips on dieting when out of town? Cheers. Any thoughts, tips? Yeah. Track your food. Calories count even if you don't count them. My best tip when it comes to dieting out of town is going to be the 2, not 3 strategy. So if I am traveling to a cool place, let's say it's like I'm on vacation in like Bermuda or something. Let's go Italy because they got good food. I would recommend make it 2, not 3. And what that means is have 2 meals where you're going to be indulging a little bit or having a little bit more calories. And then the third, but like, just make sure it's not 3 meals like that. So let's say you wake up in the morning and you're in your hotel room. Don't have like 1,000 calories of granola, eggs, and cereal. And then you're going to have 2 more meals of 1,000 calories and then gelato for like 4 meals of 1,000 calories. Just have 2 meals where you're having maybe 500 to 1,000 calories. Keep breakfast pretty light, maybe to like 200-300 calories, just protein and like fruit. And then like you already pretty much 50% of the calorie load. And that's going to help you not gain weight. In the case that you want to keep losing weight, track your food, bring a food scale, and like you'll be fine. I did my contest prep and won my pro card last year. I think I was in in a 13-week period, I was in like 9 different states or countries. And I just brought my food scale, kept tracking, and you could see that in my last year's series going at the end of 2023 into winning my pro card. I was on my honeymoon, so we did France, I don't think we cruised. We might have cruised. I don't know if we did. I don't know. But there, Aruba, Washington State, I think DC maybe. But there was a lot of traveling, but we stayed to the game plan. And like, if you got your food scale, you can always be in a good spot. Is it better? Yeah, just track your food and hit your targets, and you'll be solid. Traveling internationally, bring protein bars and protein powder. Best advice I can give you. It's hard to find protein out there. Is it better to stretch before or after workouts? I've always thought before, but seeing more people doing it after. Technically, if you're doing static stretching, if you do that before your training, it's been shown to reduce your power output. So I wouldn't recommend static stretching that's just standing there and just hitting some of those. I wouldn't recommend doing that right before your training. It doesn't really show that it reduces injury risk either, or injury prevalence either. So after is okay, but honestly, do ballistic type stuff. So I would do kind of, more of just getting your body warm. It depends also like what's your goal with the stretching. Some people are like, I stretch to avoid injury. And it's like, well, it doesn't really do that too much. So just getting your body temperature up is going to be, the best thing. Get blood flow to the joints and ligaments that you're about to train, lubricate the joints, get some WD-40 on them. And that's probably one of the best things you can do. So body temperature up, and then just take your first exercise with low load through higher reps, get an easy pump there. That's going to help you reduce that injury risk. After your training, yeah, stretching could be cool if you want to increase your flexibility and stuff, but also if you're doing full ranges of motion in your training, that's been shown to just about, match the amount of flexibility that you improve. But you're just doing it under load. So static stretching, I haven't seen it really be in favor for some time. But good question. I'm on a high protein, low sugar diet. Cool. How many calories are you eating though? Because I could be on a vegan paleo diet, but I could be chugging peanut butter, and I could be gaining weight. So it depends what the goal is, and then work your way back from there. But high protein and high protein diets. If you're probably low sugar, you're probably having less food that you'll likely to overconsume. So you're probably in a good spot. Protein for your ideal weight, not your fat weight. Protein for your ideal. Yeah, 100%. So in that case, protein for your ideal, in terms of setting your protein targets, I was saying earlier in terms of that one was if somebody's older, you're going to want a higher amount just because the kind of protein potency, I guess it decreases over as you get older. But yeah, protein for your ideal weight, not your fat weight. So if you're 300 pounds and 40% body fat, you're going to be 180 pounds of lean body mass. So 180 grams of protein should be about fine, rather than doing 300 grams of protein per day. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it. If you guys did not see the announcement in me and Nicole's a reel on Instagram, Nicole is pregnant, and we got baby number 1 on the way. Super exciting stuff. Thank you so much, Greg. I'm going to get a binky with that donation. Thank you. I think that's what you get. Listen to Andrew Huberman's latest podcast on muscle and protein. His guest is brilliant. If that was Lane Norton, he knows his stuff. Lane knows his stuff. Chris, and he also had he had Mike Izuratello on there recently too. Both those are two guys that I think are at the tip top. Wow, I haven't seen you in ages. Well, it's good to see you, O-Trial 002. All right, so I'm just scrubbing through if we have any other questions. Cool, we are good. We're at the 45-minute mark. I'm going to go take a walk. Thank you guys for hanging with me on this FlexRx episode. Hope this was helpful for you guys, and you got my step-by-step situation, step-by-step game plan of how to lose body fat, if that is your goal. And then before we close up, Greg, being a parent is so awesome. You'll be great parents. I hope so. I'm excited. What age do you think is good to introduce fitness to children? So me and Nicole were talking about this, and the funny thing is, fitness is all relative. Lifting weights is relative. Your baby crawling is technically strength training for them. Them moving their body mass across the floor is strength training for them. It's developing their muscles, developing their brain to move. It's difficult for them to have the force production to do it. They're technically strength training from day one. It's just all relative. It's not just weights being strength training. It's pretty much whatever we do. Walking, is probably strength training for them. It's using their quads because it's difficult. They're going to be so new to it. So probably if I were a baby and I walked for the first time, I haven't held that, post or axial loading on my legs, and I'm going to be sore the next day. But what age do you think is a good time to introduce fitness to children? My answer there is I would say they're fitness is going to be introduced to them, regardless of the timing that I try to set for it. They're going to walk on their own time. They're going to crawl at their own time. I'm going to be crawling with them. I think that they'll be doing their thing. And I think that that's kind of like what's going to be the fun of it, is like being active together. And like, it's all relative. Like, I don't know. Well, I'm not going to get them in the gym probably anytime super, super early, but like, they're going to see, hey, daddy's lifting some weights, and they may have like the plastic barbell and like trying to be like dad. I think that those are always some wholesome videos, but generally to wrap a pretty bow on it, what age do you think is good? I think it's like, I'm going to be trying to, walk around with, the baby, try to get them active and get them learning how to move, knowing how to move their body in space and time, and just like, getting going. I'm excited about it, but great question, Greg. I gotta read some more parenting books for sure until it's game time. But thank you guys all for watching. I will talk to you all sometime soon.